All right, here's my video for Karen's the case study. So the first one is talking about the value system she created and how you can establish yourself as a trustworthy buyer, and what actions you could take. And after thinking about it, probably the specific actions I would do is practicing vulnerability. As a buyer, that sounds really weird, but especially when it comes down to meeting the seller in person and talking with them, just being vulnerable and honest about your experience, about your motives, about yourself, about your background, and then just taking time to be with them and to listen to them about their life demonstrates those values. So I think it's A, like in conversation, being vulnerable, and then B, in practice, as you develop the relationship with them, showing that you are value driven by the way that you conduct yourself. Number two is about transparency with your team and kind of the pros and cons of that. I think that this works really, really well if you have a relationship with your team. So if you have established credibility and they trust you and they know you really well, then being transparent is by and far like the better strategy. But if you haven't built a lot of good trust and a good emotional bank with your employees and with your, I guess, associates, then it becomes really hard to actually practice that. As far as implementing the reimbursement policy with the margins and sustainability, I think honestly this is great, because it does go a really long way for the customer to see how much you value just like honesty and transparency. I think what you're sacrificing is maybe a higher rate of growth, which really for every company you just kind of have to know what your costs and what your cash flows are, and if it works for you to be able to be like, okay, maybe rather than trying to grow to this point in 2 years, it'll take us 2.5 years, but we'll sacrifice that 6 months of growth to prioritize the values and the customer relationship that we do. I think that's super viable. You just have to know as the business owner what expectation you should set for your company and for your employees. The next one's about her dedication to her clients. What actions can an acquisition team take to reinforce a seller's legacy? I think the biggest thing here is just knowing what their legacy is. So taking the time to not just talk to the seller, but talk to the employees and potentially even the clients. You can't really follow up or build on the legacy that they have created if you don't know exactly what that legacy is. And every seller is going to tell you about the legacy that they've created, but the way that you actually know what legacy they have created is by talking to people who they have created it with and for. Every seller is going to talk about how incredible their business is and what a big legacy, but to actually know that and how to best build on it, you've got to talk to the employees and probably even the clients as well. Balancing that with modernization, I would just say, honestly, a lot of technology can be integrated without compromising values. And the better that you know the legacy, the more easily you can integrate technology and modern practices without infringing. The last question is about vetting Sean and Kevin. This one I think is great. If I was the buyer in this relationship, I would probably just show the same degree of due diligence as the seller shows to me. So like if it's your priority, if I'm Sean and Kevin, and I can see that it's a priority for Karen that we have values, and that's also my priority, then I'm going to put in the same level of effort and due diligence on Karen as she is on me to show that like I'm not just doing this because you want to do this, I'm doing this because this is a priority for me as well. Again, it kind of goes back to the first question as well about vulnerability, transparency, and living the values that you talk about. That's really easy to do. It's harder to practice. There's endless number of accounts of people in business who kind of talk a big talk, but when it comes to actually walking the value walk, it comes down to your commitment to that decision to be a value-driven person.